You are listening to the Motherhood Unstressed podcast, and I'm your host, Liz Carlisle. Welcome to a new week. I am so glad that you're here with me right now, tuning into this show. And hopefully, the lessons that you're going to learn, the insights that you'll get, will help you on your own journey to better health, help those that you love, especially if they've been dealing with some autoimmune issues or just frustration with getting their own health on track. And my guest today is Carlys Stein. She's the founder of Beekeepers Naturals, which is a company that you, if you haven't heard already, will be hearing more and more about in the coming years. They just got signed on to be sold at Whole Foods. So that will give you some indication of the caliber of her company and just how incredible that their bee products are. And so, I really wanted to get into her why she started this company. And it was incredible. She suffered through her own health issues. She was allergic to antibiotics, so she couldn't really go that route. And it was through that own frustrating journey towards health that she came across Propolis and all of these other amazing bee produced products. And so this is an interview about one woman's journey to health. It's going to teach you a lot about different bee products because it's not just honey. And it's also kind of a wider expose on the healthcare system in America and how in Europe and in Asia, it can be a lot more helpful and a lot more natural. And what we're subjected to actually is not normal, and it's not necessarily the best route. And I'm not knocking healthcare, it's just... it's not the only way, and it's not sometimes the best way. So to open your mind to other ways, to other avenues, I think is always important, and it's empowering. And so I'm so excited to share her story with you and what she's offering. And if you like what you hear, you can use the code UNSTRESSED to save with her and her products at Beekeepers Naturals. So without further ado, here is my conversation with Carlys Stein. This episode is sponsored by Motherhood Unstressed CBD. This is my line of organic, USA-grown hemp that was specifically designed to help you, the listener, battle stress and anxiety naturally. And how does CBD work? Well, it works on your body's own endocannabinoid system. And when that system is working and in balance, it's affecting every other system in your body. So that means you're going to be sleeping better. You're going to be feeling less anxious. You're going to be feeling less depressed. You're going to experience less pain. All of those things are going to be running better than they were before because you're supplementing with phytocannabinoids to your own endocannabinoid supply. It's an amazing scientific fact, and more science and research is coming out daily. I'm reading it all for you. So if you are looking for an incredible product, you can go to motherhoodunstressed.com and use the code BUCKHEAD to save. Thanks, guys. Well, hello, Carly. Welcome to the show. I'm thrilled that you're here. I've been a fan of your company for a long, long time, and it's just amazing to be speaking with you today.
Likewise, I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, well, I'm just going to jump right in. I mean, it might seem like an obvious question, but how does a woman who started out in finance end up working with bees?
Yeah, so it was kind of an interesting journey. I started out, I've been beekeeping since 2012. It was something that I started doing in college as a hobby. I really started beekeeping out of necessity. Maybe I'll start from the very beginning. So I grew up with chronic tonsillitis. I was just always sick. I had the worst immune system, always run down. It was, incredibly frustrating. And that was just how it was for me. And I would look for solutions everywhere. And I'm allergic to most strains of antibiotics. So traditional medicine just wasn't really an option. And I was really reactive to a lot of the cold and flu products that are, commonly found at CVS and commonly used. So I was always sick and I didn't really have anything to solve my problem. And so I started deeply exploring the world of natural health. I became just obsessed with natural remedies and herbs and these tried and trusted compounds that we've been using for a very long time and kind of moved away from. And I found some really incredible things in that world, but I also felt really frustrated. I became really disillusioned with the world of natural health because there were a ton of products that made big, bold claims about, changing the game and solving all your issues. And they just didn't really deliver on results. So I was in this weird space where the common sort of over-the-counter stuff or the stuff that you're given at the doctor's office wasn't working. I was constantly sick. the natural world showed some promise and I was really excited about it, but I ended up spending time and money I didn't have on, these different superfoods and wellness products that didn't really do anything. And so I was just kind of like out of luck. And that was how it was. I was always sick. I was like always in school as a kid, and it continued up until college. And when I was in college, I did a semester abroad and I was studying in Europe. And when I traveled to Italy, I got really sick with really severe tonsillitis to the point where I was having a hard time breathing. And I was going to have to come home. And I was like, oh my gosh, I am not missing out again. I don't want to cut this exchange short. I saved up to be here and worked hard. And I was just really looking for any solution. So I started, going to different health food stores and like traditional pharmacies. And I went into a pharmacy in Florence, and the pharmacist took one look at me and she was like, oh, you need Propolis. I was like visibly ill. My face was super swollen. I don't know if any of your listeners have had tonsillitis, but it can be bad. So she told me I need Propolis. And I was like, okay, what is that? From the bees. And I was like, oh, so honey. And she's like, no, not honey, Propolis. And like many of us, I was under the impression that the only product that bees make was honey. So I was like, sure, whatever, I'll try it. And so I bought this like little tincture of Propolis. It didn't really have any information on it. And I started using it. And in about 5 days, I made a full recovery. So what happened for me was Propolis functioned in my body the way antibiotics do for most people. And I had just never had that experience where I fully recovered. And then as I was traveling around Europe, I started noticing that Propolis was like everywhere for sore throats, cold, flu, immune system, inflammation. And then I started learning about the other bee products. In France, they're really big on royal jelly, and they'll use it for both brain health and then also anti-aging. Pollen, I started learning about in Europe, is so progressive with their natural health compared to North America. So it was just this really sort of enlightening experience. And I started incorporating all these bee products into my routine, and I was feeling healthier than ever. Like I really went from struggling to thriving just using these bee products and, not making many other changes. And so I was just really happy, totally not thinking about starting a company at all, but I was like, cool, I found my thing. And when I finished up my exchange, went home to finish up college. I'm from Canada and went to college in British Columbia. And when I got sick, I couldn't find Propolis anyway. I went to like every health food store. Nobody really knew what I was talking about. There was tons of Manuka honey, but Propolis was really hard to find. And when I finally did find it, I got it at this farmer's market, and it was like super expensive and organic and fancy. And I used it, and I had a really severe allergic reaction. And because I was a student, I was taking a ton of chemistry classes at that time. And so I ran a toxicity panel on the product I purchased. And I figured out that there was actual trace amounts of pesticides in it. So then I started learning about all the issues with bee products. Like, whether you're buying organic Manuka or whatever it is, it's really hard to get a bee product pesticide free because the organic radius is less than the distance the bees will fly. And unlike like blueberries, which stay in one place, or cattle, which you can fence in, you can't really put a leash on the bees. So just because you're on certified organic land, if your neighbors are doing some dirty stuff, it will get into the product. And for a lot of people, that won't really affect them. But if you're autoimmune or have a sensitive system, it could. And also, I just believe if you're going to buy health products, you should be buying things that are pure and clean and do the job of detoxing you versus exposing you to even small amounts of toxins.
Right.
So,
absolutely.
I was in this weird situation where I knew what I needed, but couldn't get it in the quality that I needed it. And I just kind of figured, okay, if I want this stuff, which I do, I have to do this myself. So I started beekeeping, and it was like this weird hobby that my college friends thought was really funny. And I became completely obsessed. And it was often because, I was working, I was a student. So I was like, as a TA for my chem class, and I had this really great scientific exposure. And then in practice, like after school and on the weekends, I was going to the apiary, which is a bee farm, and tending to the bees. And so I had this like really practical lesson. I started making all my own products, sharing them with friends. Everyone loved them. And next thing you know, friends were asking me to buy this stuff to get rid of their colds. And so that was kind of how I got into the bees. And then when I was graduating, I had a job offer in finance, and that makes a lot more sense to everyone than starting a bee product company. And I was graduating with negative funds and I didn't have the confidence, I think, to start a company at that time. So I went into finance and I was there for a few years. I found myself working as a trader at Goldman Sachs, and it was great and I learned a lot, but I was never really happy. It was never really the job that I wanted to be doing. I've always been kind of like a hippie chick, and I found myself doing work that for me didn't hold a lot of meaning.
Yeah.
And my heart, like, I wasn't really letting myself acknowledge it in the early days, but my heart was really with the hives. I was obsessed with bees. I was obsessed with the products they made. I mean, I am obsessed with bees. Obsessed with the products they made, with their environmental impact, with just the intricacy of the creatures. And so I just felt really pulled to that. And I wasn't about to quit my job because it was, supporting me, and everyone thought it was a great job on paper. And so I couldn't really keep bees because I was splitting time between Toronto and New York. But I could order bee products from my mentor in British Columbia and get some basic lab equipment on Amazon and start making Propolis. And so I was like, whatever, I'll just start doing this as a hobby. I'll give it to friends. And so I started doing that as a hobby, like while I was working at Goldman. And it was just kind of this like fun little thing that I did on the side. And I wasn't really selling anything at first. I would just give it to people as presents and for Christmas and stuff like that. And then towards the end, I started going to farmers markets and pop-ups and sharing product. And I was getting this really incredible response. People were emailing me. People were sharing stories about, I remember one woman shared a story about her son who has Hashimoto's and a few other autoimmune issues. And he just had chronic sore throats, and the Propolis was the only thing that helped him. And it got to a point where I was like, okay, I think this could really help people, and someone needs to do this. And there's so many problems with our medical options right now when you're feeling sick. And I want this to be me. So I left Goldman end of 2016. And then end of 2016, early 2017, I did a little bit of traveling. Everyone thought I was like having a mental breakdown. Everyone's like, this is the worst decision of your life.
Wow.
So I kind of needed to get away from all the noise and just really kind of refocus and think about my game plan. So I went to Southeast Asia for a little bit, and I spent a lot of time there meditating, working on my business plan, and just kind of strategizing. And then I came back to New York, and I raised a small friends and family round in 2017. And that's when I really started kind of, I would say mid to late 2017 is when I really started, after that round, putting all my energy into it. And I haven't really stopped since.
Wow, that's incredible. And it kind of goes back to what we were talking about before we started recording is, you hear a story like that. It's so different. It's such a deviation from the normal, go to school, get a job, have a nice career, have a nice life on paper, and, you're a success then. What you did was completely against the grain. And I just so respect that. And I think so many women, the woman listening to this right now just resonates with that, because how many times in life do we settle, or we don't listen to our heart's desires? We don't follow that obsession. I mean, you were obsessed with this, with beekeeping and these products before it was even a thing, And so, taking us back through that, what was it? What gave you that confidence, that inner knowing to really pursue this and to go against even your best friends who were like, what's happening with her? What was the impetus there? What was inside of you?
It was really hard. It was, I'm a person who I tend towards anxiety. Like I'm pretty anxious by nature, and I'm also really type A and very hard on myself. And I mean, just the fact that I started beekeeping in 2012, and it really wasn't until 2017 that I fully accepted that I was going to build this company. It was I really had to dig deep in my personal confidence and restructure my narrative. I had to change the way that I spoke to myself. I had to adopt a growth mindset and start really believing that I'm capable of building this business. And, other like the naysayers, it's really kind of a positive thing, because if it made sense to everyone, it would already exist. The fact that people are unsure about why I'm starting this like crazy bee product company and think it's a bad idea. It's like, well, it's not familiar. And it's the fact that it's not familiar, that's my opportunity. So yeah, to properly answer your question, I knew that I wanted to do something different. I always felt out of line with everything else that I was doing. And I think I had to really tap into that. And then even when I tapped into that, it was really hard to drown out the voices of society and, the ideas we were raised with and all of the sort of false ideas and narratives that we hold about ourselves. And I had to get to a point where I was just like, you know what? I'm terrified and this might be a disaster, but I'm just going to do it anyways because there's some part of me that needs to see this through.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And going back to, the difference between the healthcare system here versus Europe. I mean, your exposure to what seemed like common sense, like, yeah, just take some propolis, is just mind-boggling to me. And it's heartbreaking, really, that, people in America, until really recently, a couple of years, really haven't had access to these types of products that could revolutionize their children's health, their health. It's really just incredible. So for the woman listening who might not really be that familiar because, hey, she lives in America, for the most part of our listeners here, what are some good products for her to start with, and what exactly does each different one do?
Mm-hmm. So I'll start by kind of breaking them down and explaining the role that they play inside the hive. So the first product I've kind of mentioned it, and it was the product that I built the company with, is bee propolis. So bee propolis, it comes from plant and tree resin. So you can think of it, unlike honey, which comes from flowers, propolis is coming from plant and tree resins. And the bees will collect these saps and resins and put it through their enzymatic process and create this sticky amber-colored substance and use it to line the hive and keep it germ-free. So it's literally the immune system of the hive.
Wow.
So, even for newborn baby bees, they'll line the inside of the cells with propolis to create a sterile environment for newborns. And something really interesting about propolis, let's say a predator gets into the hive like a mouse. The bees can sting it and kill it, but they can't physically carry a dead mouse out of the hive. And if there was a decaying rodent or body in your living room, you would get pretty sick. Like in theory, a decaying rodent would carry a lot of diseases and it would kill the hive. And so what they do in that situation is they'll actually mummify the mouse in propolis. And it's that powerful of an antibacterial, antiviral, antimicrobial substance that it protects the entire hive from the germs and diseases. So you can think of that in your body as well. Let's say you have a virus or some sort of bacteria that hypothetically could cause a problem. If you're spraying propolis, it can help to kind of combat and zap that issue and stop something before it starts or help you recover very quickly. And so it's the immune system of the hive. It's really functioning as the bee's medicine. And then for humans, it's very much functioning in the same way. So it's antiviral, antifungal, antimicrobial, and antibacterial. And this kind of speaks to my experience with chronic tonsillitis. I couldn't take antibiotics, and propolis for me functioned in the same way, but without sort of the adverse effects and without, harming my gut health and all of the other things that can be challenging about antibiotics. But it's really powerful for boosting the immune system and then also getting rid of inflammation and just soothing the body. So that's propolis. And if anyone wants to try it, we have, propolis is in a few of our products, but our propolis throat spray is super popular. I keep that in my purse and like every pocket of every jacket, and I just kind of spray it every day. We have a lot of customers who they'll use it more when they kind of have something coming on. I take it every single day year round. It's also really great for allergies because it's anti-inflammatory and because it's really, it's plant-based. It's coming from plant and tree resins and made by the bees. It's really safe to take on a regular basis. And so you can absolutely use it. Like if I have a sore throat coming on or I'm feeling sick, I'll just double down and like double the sprays I'm taking. But I really do use that product every day and I love it. And for the mamas out there, we have a kids propolis as well. And the kids propolis, it's 85% propolis and then it has buckwheat honey in it. And specifically buckwheat honey has been studied for chronic pediatric upper respiratory infections. So there's been a lot of really strong studies showing that buckwheat honey, like specifically buckwheat over, all different other honey varietals, it's really great for kids who are struggling with any sort of infection or cough or that sort of thing. And it was tested against dextromethorphan, which is the active ingredient in most of the nasty cough syrup we buy at CVS. And so that's a cool product to try. And then royal jelly is another product the bees make that I mentioned. It's super popular in France. A lot of women will use it topically as well for skincare stuff. And there's tons of like anti-aging beauty supplements that have royal jelly in them. And then there's a lot of science on royal jelly for the brain. So in the hive, royal jelly is really the food of the queen bee. The nurse bees will make this substance, feed it to the queen, And if you look just in nature at the queen bee versus regular bees, the queen bee will live 3 to 5 years versus a regular worker bee during foraging season lives 6 to 8 weeks. The queen bee will have around 1,500 babies a day. The queen bee is much more robust. So in nature, royal jelly is like working some real magic in the hive. And then for humans as well, there's a lot of science behind it. And so Western medicine has really focused on the effects of royal jelly in the brain. It's incredible for improving memory, focus, concentration. It's great for stabilizing energy levels. And then anecdotally, people use royal jelly for anti-aging. It's a really nourishing substance. And so I like to use it every single day. I take our Beekeeper brain shots. We make these shots for focus.
I love those.
And memory. Yeah, that's my fuel. Like I literally use those every day. And then I actually had a really severe concussion a few months back, and that product really helped me. We have a lot of athletes who use our Beekeeper shots for concussion recovery as well. Wow. And then just for kind of staying sharp on the field. And having had a concussion, I actually had that experience, and it was a pretty severe concussion, and I recovered like remarkably quickly. And I really credit, I lead a very healthy lifestyle, but I think that the royal jelly and the Beekeeper shots really, really helped my brain to kind of re-energize itself. And so those are great. And then our bee powered product is kind of an all-in-one. So that's a superfood honey. You can kind of think of it as a manuka on steroids. So it's a raw honey. It's just a raw, like classic sustainably sourced honey. And then we have medicinal grade dosages of propolis, royal jelly, and bee pollen all in that one. And so that's one that I like to put in my smoothies. I'll put it in tea sometimes. I also just like take a spoon of it before a workout. I love doing that because it's really great. There's pollen in there, which helps to support energy levels and have some protein. And the royal jelly kind of turns your brain on. And there's propolis for boosting your immunity and then also combating inflammation. And it's in a honey base, so it tastes delicious. And so just to recap there, propolis is the medicine of the hive. Royal jelly is like the superfood of the hive. It's what the bees use to create a queen bee. And then honey is made from floral nectars, and it's really the energy source. So the bees, you can think of it as their carbs. It's like a major component of their diet. And then bee pollen is the bee's main protein source. And with bee pollen, there's actually more protein per weight than any animal source. So it's really nourishing, especially for people who do lead a plant-based lifestyle. Pollen's a really incredible thing to incorporate. It's really high in B vitamins. It's full of free-forming amino acids, so amazing for active people. And it's full of live enzymes, so it's awesome for your digestive tract.
God, it's almost like it is like the perfect food. I mean, obviously it's the perfect food for bees, but I didn't really make the connection until you just said all of that. And what really struck me through all of that is just how much it does help your body's immune system. When you think about how many kids are getting shoved antibiotics for ear infections, and then you go to school and, everyone is getting sick, and so more antibiotics. I mean, not to mention the food in this country with all of the glyphosate, which is basically an antibiotic in it as well. You really, to have this kind of resource for kids. I mean, I keep going back to kids just because it's just, their poor little bodies, but ours too. I mean, it's just so important. And I'm just so glad that, you really did follow that instinct to create this company despite no one else doing it. So really, it's just bravo to that. Like, you're changing the healthcare system in America. I could even imagine, people who are going through chemotherapy, taking this as kind of a preventative and just to feel better, to have more energy. I mean, have you had any clients dealing with cancer that have told you about their experiences with it?
Absolutely. Yeah. So first of all, thank you so much. That's like really, connecting with the customers and, with my personal health journey, and then people very close to me. I've just been through so much and watched these products change and support people. And so I do feel like this really strong need to get it out there. And then also, just really quickly on the subject of glyphosate, one thing that's really different about Beekeeper's Naturals, we're the only bee product company that practices third-party pesticide testing. So, and that goes back to my experience in college when I had a terrible reaction to an organic bee product. So we really cater to people with autoimmune. We have a lot of customers going through chemo, people with really sensitive systems, and also just people who are taking their health seriously. And so with our third-party pesticide testing, that's a really great way for us to ensure that we are truly delivering top quality to everyone in need. And then on the subject of cancer, we have a really incredible relationship with our customers. And so we have lots of people reaching out and sharing their health struggle, and such a range. It's really incredible. And we have a lot of customers who are using the Propolis, going through that, just to reduce inflammation. We have a lot of customers who've reached out on the subject of brain fog, and, they call it chemo brain. And so the Beekeeper brain fuel shots have been really helpful to them. But yeah, it's pretty incredible. So many people are struggling with health issues, whether it's a very obvious struggle or, a sort of silent chronic illness. It's really the medical system needs to change. And I say that both when I'm referring to the traditional medical system, where we're, overdoing the antibiotics and using chemicals and giving people things with side effects that aren't necessarily the best. And then also on the wellness side, there is so much out there that has promise and potential, but, the time maybe isn't taken to do the testing, or the products aren't really built with care to ensure that there's enough of the active ingredient to move the needle, and, it's not working enough. And so I think there just needs to be a lot more authenticity, and people need to hold themselves to a certain standard when it comes to health. And that's how we can support people and create products that help to improve people's lives.
I love that. And just to touch on that, the supplement industry in America especially is kind of atrocious. And when you really start digging deep and looking at, your standard vitamins and seeing how the nutrients are extracted, I mean, it's kind of scary when you just kind of take everything for face value. So I'm so glad that you're doing that extra legwork that you didn't have to do to ensure that you're having a good quality product. And to me, it seems like you've kind of taken a wider stance. It's not just about a product. It's not just about a company. It's kind of about a bigger impact in the health of the world. So what is at the core of your mission? What do you want your legacy to be in life and through this work that you're doing?
Ooh, legacy in life is that's a big question.
No pressure.
So my legacy in this business, and, it's not even my legacy. It's like the company's legacy and our team's legacy. I want it's kind of twofold. What our intention is to help support people who feel like they have no answers, and support people on their health journey, and again, that ranges from really severe chronic illness to, something that is more of a frustration. I believe that everybody deserves to live their best life and feel healthy and feel vibrant. And we want to produce the products that help people get there without the side effects. So that's a major thing, just giving people things they can trust and rely on to support themselves and lead the lives they deserve to lead. And then environmentally, we want to do everything with impact. So, I'm obviously obsessed with the bees. Beekeeping is one of my great passions. And I also just feel deeply connected to the environment, and we're doing so much damage right now with our agricultural practices, with the pesticides, so much happening. And bees are the world's most important pollinators. Bees pollinate 1/3 of our food supply. If we lose the bees, we're going to have some really, really serious issues environmentally. And so, working with bees and working with them sustainably, which we do at Beekeeper, it's really our mission to, one, educate about the important cause that is the plight of the bees, and two, in practice, and a lot of this as well as the reason why we do the pesticide testing. We do it, one, to ensure that we have a really high standard of product and really great quality, but we also want to ensure that our bees aren't exposed to pesticides, and that we're having a positive impact, because pesticides are the main thing that's killing them. And so we want to really do our part to support the environment, educate about the bees, support the bees. We work really closely with UC Davis Bee Research. So, they're doing some great work there as well. But yeah, it's really to have impact on the environment around us, and then, individuals' personal environments to help them feel better.
I love that. That was so beautifully said. And I think that really rings true, which is why, just in a few short years, you've really taken off. I was listening to a podcast earlier today, and they were talking about your company. So, I mean, it's just, you're out there, and I'm just so excited to be a part of that. But I do have some rapid fire questions for you, if you're ready.
Definitely.
Okay. True health is feeling like you're not held back from what you need to get done in your day. I'm grateful for
my team.
And what's something that you've learned in life that you wish someone would have told you earlier on?
That we're all the same. It's a big one. We're all exactly the same, equally capable, equally deserving.
I love that. Okay, so now that the listener is completely sold on the magic of bee products, where can they find your products? Where can they find you online? Just learn more about everything that you're doing.
Yeah. So you can always check us out at our website, beekeepersnaturals.com. All of our products are there. We have an incredible blog where we talk about everything from health to products to sustainability. We're all over all the social media places. We're on Facebook. Our Instagram is beekeepers_naturals. We have an epic Instagram and we love to connect with our customer base there. And we're actually, come this spring, going to be available in most Whole Foods locations.
Oh, that's so exciting. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for sharing your light and your knowledge and your experience. I know that I learned so much and I thought I already knew a lot about bee products, but I've obviously got a lot more to learn. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you so much for having me. This is so fun.
You have been listening to the Motherhood Unstressed podcast, and I'm your host, Liz Carlisle. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if you love this episode, please share it with at least one friend. Tag us on your Instagram stories. That's a great way to support the show. Make sure that you're subscribed so that you never miss out on a morning meditation or on an interview with an incredible person doing incredible work in the world. And if you haven't already, please hit those 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, because it really does boost the show's rating and just it gets the message out to more and more listeners. So thank you.